All right. So let's talk about today, 11/18, 18th of November, EU, Euro US dollar, and we are looking at our higher time frame look right now. Managed to snag a positive 10R on today, banked and everything, so feeling pretty good about that. Um, and just watching my understanding grow is just fascinating because I'm really feeling good about everything. So let's discuss this. This whole thing is a range actually, like this. Now as I sort of look at it, this whole thing is the range that built the liquidity up here. So lots and lots and lots and lots of reasons to put stops up here, especially all of this as they pull price down. Institutions who think we keep going short, where are they going to put their stops? Right above here. Anyway, back to our 1 hour look. Nothing's really changed. We've had that mitigation. I fully expected this sort of pull back into here. And what did I say? I said with this range that's been formed, this buy to sell, we've got this guy in here, and this is exactly where I'd expect a reaction to come from. Because yesterday we were down here, we'd broken structure down here, and we weren't sure. We were kind of like pulling away, but we hadn't broken down here, and so we looked like we were pushing back up. And so you can watch the video even because I spoke about it, because I said this range is likely to hold price. Why is it this range? Because this range took liquidity from in here, so it was like a weaker looking primary here formed because of the liquidity grab. And so that gave me anticipation in a higher time frame perspective to at least expect a good reaction from that. And I'm expecting a reaction and a pull down, pull away. And if we look at our 5 minute, we can kind of see more like what's been going on. Here's that range that we reacted out of, refined, I should say. The actual range was like this, but I refined it to here. And sure enough, overnight, like while I've been asleep, we've had a single reaction and then a second reaction. Now, interestingly, as price came back down into this order block right here, we were expecting a reaction, yes. And something I just recently noticed was that reaction out of this ended up creating a sell primary. So to think that this would now hold after price created a sell primary and broke structure here is kind of weak, or very weak, I'm going to say. So I'm expecting this range to get ran now. It doesn't have to be today. I'm expecting this to be the high. And I expect that we've cleaned it out, Let's just clean this up a bit here. So by primary, I'm expecting a reaction. Where am I expecting a reaction from? Well, here was logical to expect a reaction, and then under here would be logical to expect a reaction. Whereas the next place would expect a reaction, potentially in here, if we are going to see a reaction, here would be logical to experience reactions. So anyway, it's very sellsy. We're expecting a sell reaction from here. We got it, got that breaking structure here. And so I've noticed that we had this sell to buy that broke structure. And then we took structure out here at the top. And I said to myself, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning, right? And what I meant by that was it doesn't matter if you take the high by an inch or a mile. Taking the high is taking the high. And if you actually look on a lower time frame, that did take the high. And that reminds me of, what was it, Fast and Furious. So I see that occurring. I'm expecting at this time, this range to hold. So we've sort of initiated away, and I was thinking to myself on a lower time frame, this actually is a sell primary. So I was fully expecting this to hold. It didn't hold, it became liquidity, and I wasn't expecting that whatsoever. But when it did become liquidity, I was able to look at what it mitigated just by drawing my arrow, and you can quite clearly see that we had wick up, wick down, and this actual mitigation is right in the heart of all of these orders. then we had this strong aggressive push away. So to me, this looks like a really good mitigation of orders in this area. And so I was expecting an initiation away, and that's how I got my 10R, because I was initiating away and I was able to figure out a sell primary and get involved in it. So that's the higher time frame look. We're very bearish. We were interested in this in buys, and you'll see I took some buys too, but we were interested in buys because of this buy primary. Yes, we had one reaction. We could always have a second reaction, but at the time I hadn't figured out really that the reaction from the buy primary turned into a sell primary, which is a very bearish thing to have happen. So anyway, let's take a look on our lower time frame now, 1 minute low time frame, and let's have a little look and see what we can see here, and I'll show you talk through the trades. 1 minute's not really going to cut it on this one. There's just too much going on, so I'm going to go down for 15 seconds immediately. I'm not even going to worry about it, and we'll talk about this too. Quite a lot to talk about, so I'm going to quite a sort of not rush through it, but like get through it with sort of speed and haste. So I get to the charts right around somewhere in here. It was somewhere in here. I feel like the second primary was just forming by the time I get to the charts. I don't know exactly the time. Maybe it was actually over here. I don't know. It's hard to say for sure. But anyway, I did notice that we had created a range, initiated away, broke structure, and if we look to the left, I believe there was an actual break of structure, and these are the best types of ranges, right? So range, break a structure from over here, and then this happens, right? Well, I'm just sitting on my hands. Of course, I'm sitting on my hands because I'm waiting for price to get into a sell primary or a buy primary. That's how I trade. And we form a buy primary. I'm like, okay, cool. We come back in to this buy primary, and again, I don't think I'm actually at the charts like sitting ready to trade at this point. I'm maybe doing my higher time frame analysis still, other bits and pieces. I think it was this buy primary when I was actually started to sit down and understand, what was going on. A range. I'm thinking, well, these are liquidity again, and then we put in another buy primary, and I'm like, well, we're coming up to an area of interest to me. Let's show you where this was on the chart. 7:30, right? So we're building up, and we're building up to this area of interest, right? Remember, this is a sell primary, and I've got a nice lower time frame sell primary here. And so I'm expecting a reaction and literally a continuation, break the structure and a fall down. So as we get into that area, actually, let's pull this over. I believe it was. Let's pull it over onto this chart. There it is. So as we're sort of gearing into this, I'm looking at these going, well, why are we creating buy primaries into my zone? It's not logical to create a buy primary unless we're about to run them. And buy primaries I can always trade off of, right? So I'm thinking to myself, well, it looks to me that this range is not going to hold. I've drawn a couple of areas on my chart at the time of order blocks I was interested in. And you'll see that on the sell side. If I actually just pull it over, you can see I've got 1, 2, right? We'll talk about those in a second, but 1, 2, right? So as I'm seeing the reaction out of this zone, I've got a 1 up above it, and it creates a buy primary, right? It's created that buy primary. It's landed. Here's this buy primary. Lands inside of the buy primary, reacts, takes out a transitional order block, and I'm targeting here. I'm thinking, this looks like we're going up. So I find an entry. I see, remember, if I'm buying out of a potential buy primary, what am I doing? First of all, why am I buying into a sell zone, right? It's the buy primaries that are getting me involved here, because I just want to trade off of those, and it doesn't matter to me like that we could be breaking structure up here, even though that's my bias. I'm trading off of what I see. And so that was the reason I see this has landed inside that buy primary and is initiating away, taking out this speed and aggression, all the rest of it, and it looks like this is a buy primary that's forming. It's for that reason I'm able to get involved. So I see a range, initiation, breaker structure, I'm seeing that this could potentially become a buy primary, and so I place a limit order right here, expecting the reaction out of this transitional. And sure enough, boop, we get that reaction. Up here, I'm happy days, right? I'm obviously break even, and I get taken. Hindsight, would love to have left this one open. Hindsight actually was that I would have loved to have bought here, because if you think about this buy primary that formed, if I spread it out, it activates at this candle right here, right? So it's activated. Basically, it's meaning it's now valid for a reaction. And as price comes down, there's no reaction, no reaction, no reaction, no reaction, and it's below liquidity here. And it was at that moment that I really saw what was happening. This was just so fast. Remember, we're on 15 seconds. I'm trying to get all of this in my head and sort of out of my head, I should say. And as soon as I saw that spike up, I knew, oh, I wish I'd have just bought here. 2 pips right here. One other thing I wanted to mention, so that happened, wanted an entry here, just sort of figured it out too late, couldn't really get involved. And of course, this was basically a FOMO trade where I'm just seeing range initiation, break structure, and I'm just playing a RIMC basically, thinking that we're just going to keep going up and up and up. So there's I believe this was break even. I believe that was full 1 hour loss, right? So full 1 hour loss, and we'll talk about this too. Another 1 hour loss. So 2 hour down on these 2 trades, but it doesn't matter. Just before we sort of move on, this guy right here, I was contemplating, and in hindsight, wish I'd have done this, taken less profits on this one, just because we are in that sell primary, and I had a full expectation of that sell primary to hold. That was my bias all along, and so like to bring it up into like a higher up order block should have been really what I think how I should have traded it. But I did, I always do go for 10 hour as well, and the fact that I had bright primaries kind of weighted in my thinking as to, hey, buy primary, let's shoot for 10R. We could be going breaking structure up here. We don't know what intention is at that time. So that's that trade. That's that trade covered. Just this is a terrible FOMO trade, really. I should have, hindsight, I can easily clean this up and get out of it. And just in, again, I've written this. If I get a breaker structure, it's a buy primary, and it's kind of just to help me as I'm trading, just to get something written down. So when I do see these breaker structure, I can quickly look over and go, okay, that was a buy primary that's formed, draw it in. And now what do we expect? A reaction, right? So as I'm seeing remember, this is the reaction area that we're expecting. We get pushed down, that's a tiny reaction, pushed down, that's a tiny reaction. So right now, immediately in current price action, I fully expect this to come back and react, at least at some point. It doesn't have to be now if we're aggressively moving down, which we kind of are. It doesn't have to come back for it right now, but it will come back at some point to mitigate this. And it could be that it's going to work through it and we go higher prices, or it could be that it's just going to react from it and push down. It's just that this is heavily unmitigated, this zone right here. And it's for that reason, I believe, that we will be coming back for that mitigation. Okay, we can talk about this in a moment too, but this is like to do with my trade and analyzing it. So we will get into that. Reaction, no breaker structure. I'm trying to think of why I would write that. Reaction, no breaker structure. Here was a reaction. Oh, I guess I was trying to analyze it because it like zipped up but didn't break structure at the time. It was a very slow forming primary. However, that sharp in, sharp out was present. TOB in there as well. So there's my buys. And now let's go over to my sell side. And here's that range that I was expecting the reaction from. Again, we're going to just shoot down to 15 seconds. Not going to worry about 1 minute charts. Just too messy. And there's just too much going on. So again, I'm looking for, remember I'm in that buy, and I'm looking for the this sort of zone, and sort of actually I was in the buy over here, and I was looking at these zones, and I'm like, well, these zones, we have a reaction and break a structure, right? Again, we have this reaction here and another break a structure, that second reaction, break a structure, and this reaction formed a sell primary. So for me, this was an amazing opportunity to go short. I would have liked to have seen this sell primary form by breaking structure down here, and it didn't, obviously, but so it comes down here, and I'm seeing this as a stack. So really all I need to do at this point, right, if I believe that this is a sell primary that we should react out of, this will be the high, we should react out of and get a more momentum to the downside. This understanding is complete. This makes full sense. This was a liquidation mitigation. We had liquidity stacked right here, mitigated really the origin order block for this move, and like I said, and had a small stacking of liquidity, mitigated, pushed down, took out a small TOB right here, and I think it was when this yeah, it must have been like when once price had come right down to here and it was super low, like a deep mitigation. That was giving me all I needed to get involved, really. And so I was just like, well, if I can get my stop kind of covering close to the top, but cover this range initiation, break structure, that's what I was playing. So got in. As soon as we got a breaker structure down here, I went break even. And that was just because we didn't have this breaker structure down here, because I wasn't convinced 100% that this was what we were doing. It was very rangy up here rather than sort of a sharp primary and giving me what I want to see. So I was not willing to sort of take too much risk. So we break even immediately and got broke even immediately as well. And it's at that point where I'm able to sort of start seeing, well, why would we break structure? So price comes up, break structure here. I jump to my higher time frame, like, what's going on? And then as you can sort of see on the 5 minute, it's very hard to see that this was actually a sell primary. On the lower time frame, it's much easier to see it. But on the higher time frame, it's not at all. In fact, it's just a liquidity range. And so once I saw that and the sharpness reaction away, we just mitigated and just boom, formed a sell primary, boom, got a breaker structure. So by the time we've got that breaker structure, and I should say by the time this buy primary had been taken out, and then this buy primary was completely mitigated to the bottom, literally by this point here, I'm very interested in shorting the market. Because I've seen on the higher time frame what the mitigation looks like. Here it is. Seen what the mitigation looks like, took liquidity, looks like a great mitigation. And then I see this transitional order block. So I'm very interested in that. And basically, I'm just looking for any kind of sell primary. This is the first one that I spot. Range, initiation, and lo and behold, it actually does break some sort of structure. One of these, I think it was this one here, or maybe this one. But anyway, it did break structure. And then they come up, boom. So this is going to be a reaction. Like I've put money on it that there's going to be a reaction from here. And put this sell tool here, because I'm definitely thinking, hey, as long as I can get my high covered, this is a great place for a risk entry. I've got stacking here. It's the only sell primary that's formed inside a sell primary as we're leaving as well. So lots of confidence there as to why that would be a good area. It could do what they did before and just push through, use it as liquidity before and mitigate from maybe this area here. It's definitely possible, but I do believe that I'll receive a reaction, at least a reaction. So if I can get a reaction and a pullback, then I can make a decision whether to go break even or not, high risk or not, see how the market reacts. So no trade there. Then as we push down, it's just observing price, break a structure. Remember, I'm being very patient because I'm thinking to myself, I've got to enter into a primary. Otherwise, I'm just going to enter on a RIMC. I don't know when these RIMCs are going to, come back for liquidity. But I can see that it's quite a strong aggressive move away. And then this is the first primary that forms. Got a range here, it breaks structure. If we look at the structural break, where was it? Was it this guy? Yeah, it was this low right here. So let's put this in. Let's get rid of this just so it's not very confusing. So there we go. So we had that break of structure right there, and that range formed. And then a sell primary came in, formed, and I've got this analyzed in live real time. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, well, there's liquidity and the sell primary forms. This could be liquidity as well because it's a low time frame. So let's put that in for sure. But I'm taking a risk entry here, 100%. And I just put my entry in 2 pip stop and just wanted to cover my stop. I was very, willing, or I should say, I wanted very much so to have my stop clear this up here. I wasn't willing to sort of put my stop sort of more less like this, you know what I mean, and just sort of take risk. I wanted the stop covered. I wanted the spread to cover it. Although I didn't, up here, I probably like 1 tick away from getting spreaded out, but I hung in and all worked out well. But I decided, where I wanted my stop, and I definitely wanted my stop above that high. Why? Because that was where the bulk of the orders were in that range. And so as price came back up, I was kind of not feeling it too much as it came up here. I was like, well, what's going on? And then when I saw that sharp reaction away, I kind of understood and knew that as price was initiating so strongly away, that these were sell orders up in here, and so they were just accruing a position to push price down so that they can make money. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, what's the purpose of this then? So if they do come back up here, it's going to be very quick, liquidity grab, or they might just want to add to their position, just mitigate in and out and push away. So I left my stop completely open on this one because I was like, it was very good. I can see what's happening. We've got a strong initiation away. They might want to come and mitigate here, but I do want to keep my risk here. It's the only primary we formed as well, other than the main one and up here. So, sorry, this is the main one. This is one that formed inside the main. So origin, we can call this. So it being the first primary, I'm thinking, no, let's just hold it full open risk. And the only way I'll change my stop is if another primary forms. Here's the some liquidity forms here, break range, break structure, break structure, break structure. So these are completely valid ranges. They then come and grab liquidity, create a sell primary, and a perfect thing for me because now I'm thinking, okay, I can put my stop, break even, which I can't even remember if I did or not. I may have left it open, I may have not. I really can't remember. I have to look at my logs. But sell primary forms, where's the bulk of the orders? Up here. This is where we'd expect the mitigation, right? But always look, when you see speed and aggression, always think that what are they up to? Why do speed and aggression, right? So they zip through this order block. So I'm very interested in that one as being a reaction point. And sure enough, this transitional is what I draw out, and I'm observing this. I see a range, initiation, break a structure, whether that broke some other structure. Yes, it did. So this is a great liquidity range again. Range, initiation, break structure. Liquidity stack up here, hardcore liquidity. This is the range I'm likely playing off of, or likely think I'm playing off of, right? And so we could be putting in a primary here. That's what I'm thinking. So this is a great time for a second entry. I've got this this entry over here. It's working out nicely. This would be a great place for a second entry. And the first entry that comes up, the reaction doesn't break any TOBs. That was the first significant thing. So while I saw what was happening, I saw the reaction come down, I thought to myself, well, that hasn't really done anything. It has mitigated and it has pulled down, but it hasn't done what I'm looking for as far as a liquidity mitigation, which is where it takes liquidity and then mitigates something and pushes away. So what was actually happening, in my opinion, is that this was all sort of transitional order blocks here. On the second push up, they did an actual liquidity mitigation, took liquidity from the top here, mitigated, and took transitional order block. There's an immediate one right here, and they took it immediately. So that ticked all the boxes for me, the second one. And I made a note of this. First high had, I lost a D somewhere, but had no TOB, and the second high took out the tip transitional. So that's why this was a great entry. I put it dry entry here, which means I didn't actually take it live. And the reason I didn't take it live is because I was already in an entry here. I didn't want to push things today. I thought things today might be like a 2 hour, 20-hour day. In hindsight, they wouldn't have been, right? I could see that this one didn't work out, but I feel like it was a good entry to identify. So there's my trades on the day. Several buys and several shorts. And the one highlight of the day is this guy who came in beautiful, great understanding of the market, and very happy with the result. If I was to be trading now, which I'm not, but if I was, what would I be looking at? Well, definitely continuation sells. Where would you be selling from? The last known sell primary is where I'd be selling from, and lo and behold, it's just gotten taken. So that shows us either this is going to become liquidity, and this will hold, this sell primary, because remember, a sell primary with a sell primary, when they're pushed together, it could be just stacking liquidity into this one right here, right? So this could be the actual primary. Transitional order block's been taken. We're working on this transitional. This has been taken. It's showing signs of wanting to go down. So this could be an area that we could be considering. Okay, this is actually something we're going to short from. How would I play this? I'd be looking for a range, initiation, breaker structure, a stacking of liquidity. Let's see if we can find one. And then I'll be looking for price to come and take it, break structure on itself, and then I would play that range down. I wouldn't just be jumping in on this, even though this is a sell primary that you're still inside of, because it's already taken one, it's more high risk. And I think we need to wait for confirmation before we start thinking about any of that. That's just my personal analysis. All right. Aloha to anyone watching. I hope all is well. Hope you're making massive R. Hope you're having a great day today, and enjoy your weekend. All right. Aloha.